Welcome back to the Explainer. Okay, let's jump right into it. Today, we're completely tossing out the sterile textbook theory and stepping straight into the real, messy, everyday world of classroom management. We're going to unpack the hidden messages behind disruptive student behavior and actually figure out how to build true, lasting connections. So, picture this. It's a typical Tuesday morning, and you've got a completely chaotic classroom scene. There's constant talking over by the window, you've got a student just outright refusing to open their workbook near the front, maybe two kids literally fighting in the back, another one fast asleep on their desk, and someone else secretly scrolling on their phone under the table. Oh, and meanwhile, another student is silently crying, and your highest achiever is loudly challenging every instruction you give. Just imagine the immense, crushing stress this causes an educator trying to hold the whole shebang together. It is completely overwhelming. When you're staring down that kind of exhausting, daily chaos, you really have to hit pause. We have to ask ourselves a critical question, and honestly, it's one that will completely flip your entire perspective on discipline. You gotta ask, are these inherently bad children, or are they communicating an unmet need? The absolute foundational truth we have to embrace if we want to transform our classrooms is simply this. Every behavior is a message. Children are using their actions to tell us what they simply cannot articulate with words. Think about it. They aren't trying to give you a hard time. They are actually having a hard time. Which brings us right into section 1, the behavior iceberg. So, this concept is just like a real iceberg. The disruptions we see on the surface, the calling out, the sleeping, the fighting, the arguing, those are really just the tip. They are almost always driven by massive, hidden emotional and academic needs lurking right beneath the waterline. We're talking unresolved trauma, deep boredom, severe anxiety, academic frustration, or really intense family stress. If we only react to the visible tip of that iceberg, we're missing the actual problem entirely. All right, let's move to section 2, decoding classroom chaos. So, how do we practically decode these daily disruptions? Well, we can use what's called the ABC behavior framework. This is a brilliant method because it forces us to look right past the dramatic reaction itself and really examine the surrounding context. A stands for antecedent, like what happened right before the incident. B is the behavior, what exactly occurred. And C is the consequence, what happened immediately after. When you map these scenarios out side by side, the patterns are just glaringly obvious. Take a task that's simply way too hard. That's the antecedent. The behavior is refusal, and the consequence? Well, the student successfully escapes the work. Or consider a student who's feeling a lack of attention. They call out loudly, the teacher scolds them, and ironically enough, they just got the exact attention they were craving. Educators so often fixate on the behavior itself while completely missing the antecedent that triggered the whole thing. And understanding that trigger leads us perfectly into section 3, escalation versus de-escalation. This is where it gets tough, because it's absolutely crucial to hold a mirror up to our own actions. Our instinctual frustration responses, things like public humiliation, sarcasm, shouting, or making threats, they actively escalate the tension. It's literally pouring gasoline on a fire. Conversely, de-escalating responses put the fire out. Using a calm voice, utilizing proximity control, giving a kid choices, and asking restorative questions, those things completely shift the dynamic in the room. Let's actually apply this to some real-world scenarios, because it changes everything. When a student refuses to work, the instinctual, but wrong, response is public humiliation. The best response? Scaffold the task or pull them aside for a private talk to uncover exactly where they're stuck. If a fight breaks out, shouting over them is just going to add to the chaos. The best response is to ensure physical safety first, separate them, and then use those restorative questions. Shifting from a knee-jerk instinct to a measured strategy totally changes the outcome of your day. In every single interaction you have, your guiding principle for de-escalation really needs to be this: correct the behavior, not the child. We have got to separate the student's core identity from their disruptive actions. They are not a bad person. They just made a bad choice, and hey, we can fix that together. Which smoothly brings us to section 4, building positive classroom culture. If we want to stop misbehavior before it starts, we can proactively build this culture using the CASL framework. Instead of just kind of expecting kids to naturally know how to handle these big, overwhelming emotions, we actually have to systematically teach them the social-emotional learning skills they need. We're talking self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. We are quite literally handing them the tools to regulate themselves. So, what does this actually look like on a random Wednesday? Well, integrating daily practices like morning meetings, doing quick emotional check-ins, holding appreciation circles, and really fostering student leadership are incredibly effective. Creating class agreements together, rather than just handing down a list of rules, slowly transforms a really difficult classroom into a highly collaborative community built entirely on trust. And remember the golden rule of prevention here. Engaged students rarely become disruptive students. Think about it. When educators build strong relationships and deliver highly engaging, dynamic inquiry activities, the urge for a student to act out naturally just fades away. The boredom and frustration get completely replaced by curiosity and focus. To really see the real-world impact of these strategies, consider this amazing story detailed in the source text. It's about a boy who was labeled by pretty much everyone as a problem. He was a highly disruptive student who constantly interrupted class, and he was punished over and over again. But eventually, one perceptive teacher realized his secret. He was simply terrified because he couldn't read. All of that wild disruptive behavior was nothing more than a smokescreen to hide his immense embarrassment. And this is right where the magic happens. Instead of handing out more punishments, this teacher chose to shift from control to connection. She quietly provided him with the reading support he so desperately needed. And you know what? That single shift transformed the child into a confident learner. He eventually grew up to become a highly successful engineer. By choosing deep connection and academic support over control and punishment, that educator literally changed the trajectory of his life forever. This moving story beautifully illustrates the core takeaway of this entire explainer. Children who need the most love often ask for it in the most difficult ways. The absolute most challenging classroom behaviors you're going to face are so often just desperate, disguised cries for help and understanding. So as we wrap up our analysis of this really incredible source material, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to carry into your classroom tomorrow. A teacher's success is not measured by how many students obey, but by how many students grow. So take a hard, honest look at your own classroom. Is your ultimate goal obedience, or is it growth?